Can you really build a money plan without regular income? I'm Kandas Rodarte. This is Gratitude Geek. Today we are chatting with a former corporate finance pro who turned financial coach. She left the ladder behind, redefined success on her own terms, and yes, she built a money plan that works with irregular income. Welcome, Kim Pike Walters.
Thank you so much, Candace. I'm so happy to be here today.
So I still have pneumonia. Kim is gracious enough to promise me that she's going to carry this conversation so that I can hack and wheeze while I'm muted. So, Kim, please share what you would like the listener to know about you.
Yeah, so I'm Kim Pike Walters. I am a financial coach for solopreneurs. And I really help them create more security and predictability with both their business and personal finances. So you can really get to a point where you're using money as a tool to enjoy life instead of having it be something you're constantly stressing over. You mentioned a little bit about my background, which we can get into a little more if you'd like. I live in San Diego, California, with my husband and my pug, who's snoring in the background. Outside of work, I enjoy reading, jigsaw puzzles, board games, and playing the flute in a community concert band.
Oh my gosh, how fun is that? I love
Yeah,
when adults keep playing their instruments.
yeah. I've been doing it since fifth grade. And when I reflect on how many years that's actually been, I sometimes it's pretty startling.
So, how do you weave gratitude into your business strategy?
I love starting every one of my client sessions celebrating whatever wins they had in the last couple weeks. And I think that's so important because there's a lot going on in the world. And I can speak for myself when I say it's very easy to focus on the negative. Sometimes when I ask clients that question, they have an answer right away. And it's like, oh, boom, 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 here's what I did. And sometimes they're like, I don't think I have anything. And then maybe 5 minutes later, they remember, oh, wait, I actually fully paid off a credit card in the last 2 weeks. I'm like, that's huge. And it really goes to show how easy it is to overlook the positive and overlook the progress that we're making. And I know I do it too, right? I'm definitely not exempt. And so I think it's really helpful to have that built in at the start of each session to start off from this place of gratitude and appreciation. And just personally as well, I journal every evening and I'll talk about whatever when I journal, but then I like ending with at least three things that I'm grateful for. And they vary. Sometimes it's just the sunshine and being able to enjoy the warmth.
The more we appreciate the little things, the more little things we find to appreciate. And
That is so
I'm
true.
I'm really working with myself on reframing gratitude as appreciation because appreciation also means growth.
Mhm.
And when you reframe it as appreciation, you are allowing expansion and growth into your everything. So I'm working on it. I'm working on it. It's not there yet. This is the Gratitude Geek podcast, not the Appreciation Geek podcast.
Maybe
but,
someday.
but they are the same, but they're different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. I have been self-employed, quote unquote. I mean, I have a corporation, but you're still self-employed
It
when you're
counts.
single owners, right? Yeah. For nearly 30 years. And we have had years where we've made multiple six figures, and we've had years where we barely made five figures. How do you build a money plan around money that when your income is so sporadic and it can literally vary from month to month? How do you do that?
That is a great question and something that so many of my clients struggle with. And first, just want to acknowledge that it is harder to do, right? Some people are like, oh, I don't need help. I shouldn't need help. But we're not taught about money in school. And then we're expected to figure it out ourselves. And then it's more than twice as complicated when you're trying to figure out both business finances and personal finances. And a lot of the traditional budgeting advice out there was made for people with 9 to 5 jobs. And they're like, oh, you have this amount of money every 2 weeks or every month and these expenses. And that's not the reality of things. So I want to start by acknowledging the fact that it is harder. There's nothing wrong with you if it feels hard. That's just how it is. It's one of the many challenges or opportunities, we'll say, from being a business owner. I would say the first thing that I like to start with people is just getting a clear idea of your current state of your finances. So what's coming in, what's going out. A lot of times I think we make assumptions about what is happening, right? I spend, making up numbers here, a client might think they spend $1,000 a month on eating out or $500 a month. And then we look at it, it's like, oh, I actually spend twice as much money on that. And so without that starting point, it's very hard to figure out where you want to go and where there are opportunities.
You
So I would
know,
go ahead.
we're so spoiled today because we have these tools that automatically balance your checkbook. All your transactions are downloaded. You actually don't really need to look at anything. I mean, your banking systems do it all for you, and it can make us lazy, and it also can make us overspend.
That is so true. I sometimes ask myself if we would be better off without credit cards because a lot of my clients have credit card debt. And
I'm
something I
credit card
didn't.
free.
Oh,
I cannot tell you how
nice.
liberating it was to pay off those credit cards
Yes.
because you
Yeah.
actually have more money when you don't have a credit.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so easy to just swipe your credit card here. It's like $5 here, $10 there. And then you get your statement at the end of the month and it's like, what? Excuse me, how much should I spend? Yeah, so that's something a lot of people struggle with. So I recommend to all of my clients, at least as a starting point, to not use their credit card and to work with a debit card. It's easier to maintain the boundaries around what you have because they'll cut you off if you don't have the money in your bank account.
So what about lines of credit?
Lines of credit, and I don't want to, lines of credit can be helpful, and so can credit cards. I want to encourage people to look at them as a tool, right? If you're using this as a way to get short term funding or financing to hold you over to the next month, and you're okay doing that, knowing that it might be a 25% interest rate, that to me is very different from someone who's like spending, 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 can't afford it, doesn't know how to pay it off. No judgment, no shame with any of that. But I think it can be a more accessible line of credit for people than some traditional funding or lines of credit. But I would also encourage, if that's something your listeners think they might need, to explore other options with banks, with credit unions, because you can typically get a lot lower interest rate than the average credit card of about 25%.
Yeah, well, and I always thought lines of credit were for buying big
Mm,
equipment or materials before you like manufacturing. Let's say you've got a client who purchases something from you, you've got to buy all the materials to make it. You need the line of credit to buy the materials before the client pays you.
yeah, that can absolutely be an example. But another example, I'm on the board of a nonprofit here in San Diego, and the nonprofit has a line of credit. We don't use it most of the time, but sometimes we do. One of the times was in a month where there were 3 payrolls, right? If you're paying every 2 weeks, and we get a lot of funding from state grants, federal grants, city, county grants, and they can be kind of slow to pay. Surprise, surprise.
Or they can
So,
be rescinded. I mean, I've heard about
yeah.
nonprofits getting their grants rescinded recently. Okay, so we've covered that you actually absolutely need to have a handle on how much money you actually have and how much you actually spend. So that's
Yes.
step 1. What is
Mhm.
step 2 to building a money plan when you don't have regular income?
Yeah. Step 2, I would say there's some foundations that you want as a small business owner, as a solopreneur. One, I would say, is separating your business and personal finances. It's very helpful if you don't have a separate business checking account. Please go get one. It's free in most cases, and it's really helpful to figure out what's going in, what's going out. Your CPA will thank you, your bookkeeper will thank you. So that's one thing.
See, I
And
always thought step one of opening your own business was opening a checking account in the business name. I
yeah,
you don't have a business until the business has a checking account.
you'd be surprised. That's not the case for everyone. So, since there's no roadmap of, do X, Y, and Z, I like to make sure I kind of start with the basics. And if somebody already has that done, then amazing. They just checked one thing off their list super quickly. Yes, way to go. Okay, so another thing that I recommend to people is proactively saving for taxes, federal taxes, state taxes, if they're applicable to you.
How
Sure,
do you
most
know
of
how
you.
much to save?
Good question. My default answer will be go talk to your CPA. That is what I would recommend. But I don't want to leave people hanging. So, as a starting point, I would say take 20% of your revenue, put it into a completely separate account, a separate savings account, like out of sight, out of mind in a positive way, and use that to pay your quarterly taxes, both state and federal. Not won't go into payroll taxes here, but of course, if you are an S corp, that's something you'll have to look at as well. Yeah, so use 20% as the starting point. If your business is relatively consistent, you can also look at what you paid last year in terms of taxes, and that can be a good starting point for your savings.
But we don't have consistent businesses here. This
Yeah. Yes. So I didn't leave you hanging. I gave you the 20% and then your CPA can start with that. And it's never gonna be perfect, right? Like in my perfect world, I'm like, oh, I owe $0 in tax and I'm getting $0 back. But it's not gonna be perfect. So you're really trying to get it close enough to ideally avoid penalties and interest from the IRS.
So we have our business checking account. We have
Mhm.
our tax savings account or our tax
Yes.
account where we put our money
Mhm.
for taxes. What other tools do we need?
So paying yourself. I'll talk about it. I know it can be a little challenging with inconsistent income, but paying yourself is so important. I think for a lot of people, they pay themselves last and they pay themselves whatever is left over, which sometimes is nothing. And we have our business so that we can support our personal life. And so we really need to focus on paying ourselves, prioritizing that, and paying ourselves as if we were another employee that we were paying in our business. Like I had one client who, when she started working with me, she would run payroll based on when her personal account got down to zero. That would trigger her to run payroll and she'd just transfer over whatever she had in her business account. And what I would encourage people to do is pay yourself a consistent amount on a consistent basis. And this is where knowing your numbers becomes important because once you know your personal numbers, you can figure out how much you need to pay yourself in order to support your personal life. And I would encourage people to look not just at the monthly recurring expenses, but also things that happen every 2 months, every 3 months, every year. Maybe you take a big trip every year. Account for that when you're figuring out how much to pay yourself, and then do it consistently every week, every 2 weeks, etc. And that helps put a little bit more predictability into the personal side of your finances.
It sounds to me like it's a really good idea not to spend it all if you make a lot in 1 month. Like,
Yes. And that is kind of the next piece, which is really the key for having inconsistent income is building yourself a buffer or a reserve and not just being like, great, I had a good month. I'm going to go spend all this money or invest in this expensive course or something like that. And so if I continue on with the example from one of my clients, to make up numbers, let's say she's paying herself $1,000 every week. she has extra money that she could pay herself, she puts that into a savings account so that when she does have a slower week, she can still pay herself that $1,000 predictably. And then it takes some of the frantic energy away from this client booked the session, but they haven't paid their deposit yet. And like, I need that money so I can pay myself. It's like, no, it would be nice if you had it, but you have this buffer built up so you know that you can pay yourself consistently, even if that revenue doesn't come in for another week or two.
What about when you're at the beginning of your business and you don't have any idea about income?
Yeah, that is a challenge for sure. I in a perfect world, you have built up some savings that you can use before transitioning into entrepreneurship. So if you left a corporate job, maybe you'd built up a runway of 3 to 6 months of expenses so that you do have a little bit more flexibility. And then maybe you don't need to pay yourself for those first 3 to 6 months, or you don't need to pay yourself that $1,000 a week in the example because you have that built up.
I think it's a good idea to have some sort of cushion before you start because I mean, some people are really lucky and they hit it out of the ballpark on the first pitch. And sometimes it takes all 9 innings before you hit it.
Yes.
We once had a client, this was many, many years ago, but he was a plumber and he had this beautiful home with this gorgeous custom pool and everything was custom built. And he said it took me 30 years to become an overnight success. But he paid
Yeah.
his dues, and I mean, that's the reality for a lot of self-employed people is that
Yes.
you trudge along, and then, "Wow, I did something right." But for 30 years, he barely got by, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, there was a ramp. It wasn't
Mhm.
he didn't struggle the whole 30 years, but at some point, something amazing happened. So I mentioned that I'm credit card free and debt free, uh, and that was a really good choice for us, and I highly recommend it, but what are your thoughts on it?
I think it depends on each individual person. That's my lawyer answer. I'm not a lawyer, but there you go. I think they can be a helpful tool, but whenever clients start working with me, if credit card debt is a problem for them, I always recommend that they stop spending on their credit card because it is harder. You have fewer of those boundaries. So, I personally use credit cards. I pay them off every month. I think if you can do that, I think it can be a good tool. But I've also had people who are like, "I really wanna put this on a credit card because of the points," which is fine. Let's say you're getting a maximum of 5% back. If you can't pay that off in full, that's probably 25% in interest. So the math is very clear in favor of not getting the rewards if you can't pay it off in full. So I would encourage people to if it's a challenge for you, just stop for a little bit. It doesn't have to be forever, but I think it's a good starting point and helps you create a little bit more intentionality around what you're spending.
I think that's great advice. Again, if you're spending more than you're making, you're just gonna keep digging a hole.
Yes, and that's a great point, which is something I didn't hit on when I talked about step 1 being figuring out what your current state of your numbers are. Because the next step 1B, if you will, is doing that reflection and looking at what's coming in and what's going out. And again, not just your monthly recurring expenses, but everything, travel that you take once a year, etc. Because I've had people come to me and say, I have this great debt payoff plan, this aggressive snowball method plan. We look at their current numbers and realize that they're actually spending more than they're making each month. And so I have to kindly say, pause. Let's not focus on paying off your debt yet. Let's back up and let's work on this equation of revenue minus expenses. So we can work on increasing revenue, we can work on decreasing expenses, or both. But you really need to get that equation to be positive before you can start paying off your debt in a lasting way. Because to your point, if you're spending more than you're making, the math is just such that you will end up in more debt.
Where are the easiest places to trim expenses?
It again depends on each individual person, but I'll give you a few examples.
You're so diplomatic.
If we look at the business side of things to start with, I would look at recurring subscriptions. I had one client where we started looking at this and we found thousands of dollars in annual savings just in subscriptions that she wasn't using. So not even things that she was having to cut out that she was using. She had one $50 a month faxing app subscription. Like, do you fax anything? Nope. No, I do not. So
I don't think I've even heard the word fax in years.
Yep. Yep. So I would encourage looking at that. If you have Apple, you could go into your iTunes and check that out. There are also apps out there that will help you look at your subscriptions. That I think is some low-hanging fruit.
I just opened up my notebook and wrote a note to cancel a subscription that I know I'm not using anymore.
I love that. What is it?
It's actually Canva. I used to use Canva
Oh.
Pro religiously, and I don't think I'm getting the value out of it anymore because I
Yeah.
create all my own designs. I don't use the Canva stuff. So I don't think I need the Pro account anymore.
Nice. Yeah, the free account is pretty generous.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
and they've offered me multiple free trials. So I've probably gotten like 3 30-day free trials at this point.
I mean, it's only like $16 a month, but $16 a month could buy me 2 cups of coffee at my favorite coffee shop.
I know, it adds up. And so like there was the faxing app subscription, but we kept finding things like that the more that we looked at it. And those things add up, right? Quickly, you find a few of those and it's $50 a month, $100 a month, right? $100 a month, that's $1,200 a year. Like it really adds up. You can pay for coffee, it can pay down your debt, it can go into savings. Options abound. But again, we start with figuring out what we're currently spending. Because if we hadn't looked at everything that was coming in and going out for her, we wouldn't have been able to ask that question of, what's this $50? What's that $12.99 a month? So I think that's a good low-hanging fruit potential.
Can I also
Yeah.
just say, I said 2 cups of coffee for $14. So, I mean, that's just ridiculously a lot of money. So maybe we cut out drinking coffee at the coffee shops too.
Yeah. So for a lot of clients, when we look at their personal finances, eating out and coffee is definitely an opportunity. But I want to be careful to not approach this from a perspective of deprivation. Because if somebody tells me, don't eat dessert, I have a sweet tooth. That's probably important to note. But if somebody tells me, don't eat dessert, the only thing that I'm sitting there thinking about is that cookie that I really want. And it's similar with money. If we tell people just don't ever eat out, don't spend on coffee, then that's just this constant pervasive thought in your head. And so really it's about balance, right? We're not Elon Musk. We don't have $1 trillion. We have limited resources. And it's up to each one of
Audience,
us.
if you are listening and not watching, I just rolled my eyes so hard, I think the back of my head hurts.
Yeah, so
Okay,
we do
sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. I knew what I was getting myself into with that reference. But we do have limited resources, and it's up to each one of us to decide what is important to us to spend on. So, for example, I had one client who working out was very important to her. It helped her physical health, her mental health. And so her $200 a month Orange Theory subscription was totally worth it to her and was non-negotiable, right? But to somebody else, to someone like me who's has a gym included in my HOA membership and still doesn't use it, that $200 a month gym subscription would not be worth it.
I need to
And
know what the amenities are for that $200 subscription.
I'm not super
There
familiar with
better be
Orange
free
Theory.
massages.
If there were free massages, I would join. Sadly, I don't think there are, but I think it's group fitness classes. But it just kind of shows how each person is individual with what is valuable to them. So I don't want to universally say, cut out coffee or cut out eating out or cut out, anything, because it's your decision on what is most valuable to you and what you want to spend your hard-earned money on. And so if someone wants to go get an $8 cup of coffee, they can do that, right? If they start doing it.
Oh, good. It's not every week, y'all. It's once a month.
Yeah.
It's once a month.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you can probably tell my gasoline is running low. So you're going to carry it a lot for the next 15 minutes.
I got
Okay,
you.
so we've covered the basics. Really, let's nail this. We are solopreneur women. Most of us are Gen X. So this is our second career. We probably have some sort of cushion. I just talked to a really good friend of mine who recently retired, and she's starting a pampered chef business. Shout out to Lori Jimenez. I'm going to drop her pampered chef link in the chat or in the description because I am so proud of her. But she's a very good friend. I've known her for 20 years. But I just talked to her this morning about how she's just retired from her corporate job and is starting this new business. Some of us are pivoting so hard that it's like not even a reality that we were ever aligned with before. So adding the layer on top of that is, how am I going to pay my bills?
We mentioned ideally you have that cushion. If that's not a reality, we talked about a line of credit. And there are other options too, like small business loans, small business grants, 0% APR credit cards. There are things that you can use, tools that you can use to help buy you some time if money just really is not available in the shorter term. I think other pieces that you could look at are pricing, right? Is there the opportunity to increase prices a little bit? I had one client who increased them a little bit, and I pushed her to increase them a little bit more. And you know what? The clients are still coming in. So you're able to not work as much, but still get the revenue that you need. So there's pricing. If we're really talking about like paying electricity bills, those types of things, there's always looking at different lines of business, doing some sort of additional side hustle, opportunities to make money just to kind of keep yourself afloat in the shorter term. Hopefully, we're not at that point, but if that's the reality, those are the types of things that I would suggest people look into.
I think that, and I keep saying this every week, I say this over and over again, the true opportunities in 2026 and beyond are in collaboration and
Mm,
co-creation. If you can figure out someone who has an aligned message with yours, an aligned audience, the two of you could make 3 times as much money by offering something together. I
yeah.
totally believe that.
Yeah. I love that. I am not a marketing expert, so I am going to defer to you on that one because I'm still trying to figure that whole piece out myself.
It's not really marketing, it's just figuring out what the two of you can offer together. So, talk to me a little bit about your transition. I mean, you went from corporate America to now you're a financial coach. What did that look like for you?
Great question. I didn't even know what financial coaching was a few years ago. I was working in corporate finance for over 13 years. I got my CPA license, got my MBA, doing my climbing the corporate ladder thing one rung at a time. And the money was good. The people were mostly good. and but I just started getting kind of frustrated. I didn't feel like I had as much meaning or purpose as I really wanted. I knew that ultimately the company was helping patients, but I was so far removed from it that it was more felt like I was creating financial statements for Wall Street investors, which is fine and is needed, but that didn't fill my cup in the way that I wanted. But I didn't know what else I would do because I had always done corporate finance. And so I started reflecting on what I like doing in my free time, thinking that that could be a good clue for something else as a job. And one of those things is volunteering as a tax preparer for lower income families. I know, super nerd over here who likes doing taxes. Um, and that is really where I found a passion for helping people reduce their financial stress. I had one tax client years ago who was so grateful for my help that she offered to tip me. I was like, no, 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 I can't accept your money, nor do I want to. But I had just done her taxes and saw how little she had to spare. And she wanted to share some of that with me. And that gesture of gratitude really moved me. And like it still gives me chills when I talk about it today. And it showed me how big of an impact just a little bit of financial help can have in somebody's life. And around the same time, I had a friend who was wanting to move to a different city, but said that she couldn't afford it. And I just knew that if we sat down, we could come up with a plan in order to make that happen. So I kind of took those two things, started Googling. I learned about financial coaching. And the more I learned about it, the more excited I was. I was waking up early before my alarm, which does not happen that often. Because my idea was just, my brain was just buzzing with ideas. I told my husband, I want to quit my job tomorrow because I'm so excited about this idea. He didn't quit right away. I waited about 9 months, but so I did both. I had worked in corporate and did my business for about 9 months until I eventually left my corporate job and transitioned to my business full time. It's very, I'm very happy I did it. It's definitely a ride, as you know. It's an emotional roller coaster, and I'm very grateful for my husband's support because he is very like steady and I'm like all over the place with my emotions about things.
But you should see your face. You are glowing when you talk
Oh,
about it. Your cup is absolutely filled.
yeah. I you were talking about earlier gratitude in my business. I feel so grateful that people trust me to help them with their money. It's something that is taboo to talk about in a lot of cases in our society. And a lot of people express embarrassment, guilt, shame, fear that they're going to be judged if they talk to somebody about it. And I'm so grateful that with them not even knowing me very well, they open up and they share all of these very vulnerable things about their finances, about their goals, about their dreams with their money. And so that I think is really beautiful to be a part of. And for me is very fulfilling, even though it's a roller coaster and I'm still trying to figure a lot of things out. I think success for me is the fact that I've helped one person with their money. And
Oh,
so
I love
every
that.
additional person is just more and more success.
I love that. So it took you about 9 months and you felt like you had the momentum to quit your job. What was the trigger for that?
So I'm in a very fortunate place where my husband's salary covers our expenses. And so I had the flexibility to be able to start if it was I mean, we have a good amount of savings, but I think having that savings, having his salary really helped me give myself the freedom to leave my corporate job before my business was maybe as established as I would have wanted it to be. So it was a little bit of a leap of faith. I so I gave myself some runway. I also was waiting until I got a bonus at my job and some of my stock had vested, those types of things. But I was constantly wanting more time to work on my business. Like, the evenings and the weekends were not enough. Every day when I went to work, I was like, "Ugh, I just wanna be working on my business." So it was a little bit of a leap of faith of, "Okay, I'm going to make this jump so that I have more time to be able to invest in it and build my business and just bet on myself," really.
Yeah, you can really see it on your face that you love what you're doing.
I do.
So, for the female solopreneur, the woman solopreneur listening to this right now who has very irregular income and needs to put together their money plan, what are the top 3 things that you want them to have taken away from this conversation?
So, top 3 things. I would say proactively save for taxes. That will avoid headaches later. Pay yourself consistently what you deserve, not just whatever scraps are left over. And then really focus on putting some buffers into place so that you're building up money to be able to pay yourself, but also to be able to pay for your operating expenses when you inevitably have a slower week or a slower month.
That's all great advice. Thank you very much. I really feel like we should talk for more, but pneumonia is kicking my butt, y'all. Audience, I'm sure you have questions that you want to ask Kim. That is why there is a comment section below. Please leave comments. I will make sure Kim sees them. I will link to Kim's website and all her links in the show notes. I apologize. I need to cut this conversation short. God. I hope I feel better next week.
I hope you do too.
All right, Kim Pike Walters, this is your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
I am so grateful for my husband and his support on this emotional roller coaster of entrepreneurship. I throw so many emotions at him on the regular, and he is so supportive and really just focused on me doing what I want to do and doing my passion. So I couldn't do it without him.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for Gen X women solopreneurs weaving gratitude into your business strategy. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Soul Lily. This has been episode 330. I've been your host, Kandas Rodarte. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy.